Mm.
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, could you please just tell me who you are in Haystack and what it is we're about to look at?
Hi, well, my name's Michael Rifkin. I am the Chief Product Officer at Haystack. I've been responsible for conceptualizing and leading the development in our game. And so, what we are about to take a look at is the MVP of the introductory level of Haystack Chronicles, which is the placeholder name for now of our assessment tool.
Wow, okay. I have already stolen your screen. I've stolen the opening screen. I haven't seen this game. So
Mhm.
just to be clear to anyone watching this, I have not seen this game at all. I've just stolen the screen because it looks so cool. So I'm quite excited to see what the game is and how it looks. Can you launch it for us?
Yeah, let's dive in. Okay, are you seeing it?
Oh, yes, yes,
Great.
and yeah, okay, and that's what I stole. Yes, very cool.
Hmm. Yeah, no,
Okay.
it's a beautiful looking background. I think it's
Ah,
fairly representative of what we're trying to achieve here, and in a way, almost replicates our logo a little bit. If you look at the shapes
nice.
in the
Oh, I
back.
do. I get it. Yeah, I get it.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah. Okay. Well, could you
Should we
talk us
dive in?
through it a bit? Yeah. Oh, do you
Yeah.
want to go straight in? Yeah,
Well,
I've got so
I
many
can
questions for you. So we can, if
feel
you want
free.
to go straight in and give me a little walk around, that
Yeah,
would be wonderful.
absolutely. So the basic premise of the game is that the player wakes up on an island with no memory. And the goal is
Okay.
to essentially complete puzzles throughout the island, and that will help them discover why they're on the island, what's going on, and help motivate them to continue doing the assessment. So,
All right.
this is the starting beach. The idea is that the player wakes up with no context and no additional information. So, as you
And
can see,
I know we've talked about this game before, and my understanding is you can play this game more than once.
exactly. So, the idea of the game is that every time you complete the cycle of puzzles, it will send you and return you back to the beginning. That works for two reasons. One, it's a time travel loop, it's an integral part of the game. And second, it'll help us with our assessments. One, it will give us a method to compare results against each other. It will also scramble many of the puzzles. So every time you go through it, some will be the same, some will be different. And that way we'll be able to see what does the player prioritize. Do they go to ones they like? Do they go to ones they don't like? Do they go to harder or easier puzzles? Or do they follow the same path as before?
Every time you
Um,
play the game, it's a different game.
Well, the map will look the same, but the puzzles may
Uh-huh.
be different. So the puzzles in the game are randomly generated. So every time, or procedurally generated in kind of the video game language. So every time you play one, it will then procedurally generate a new example of it.
Right.
So not only can you do most of the puzzles multiple times within the same playthrough, but once the story restarts, you'll be able to complete them again, and they will be fresh and new.
Nice, nice.
Mhm.
Okay. Well, yeah,
Mhm.
take us on a quick walkthrough. This
Great.
what am I looking at here?
Yeah, so right here is the kit, who I'm going to wake up right now. Now, the kit is the player companion. They're kind of responsible for managing the island, for giving the player feedback, serving as a friend and conversation partner, but also motivating the player to continue going through the island. So, as you can see, we'll see if this works. I'm going to talk with the kit for a minute. It's an LLM based chatbot that's designed to interact with our specific users. So, let's
Wait,
see if this
you're
works.
going to speak. You're going to speak with
Yep.
them.
Hey, Kit, how are you doing? So typically it would actually we would hear the voice. I'm doing well. Are you ready to explore the island? We'll see. The kit is designed to ask a lot of follow-up questions to learn more about the player and to help us fill out the forms. So something
This
like
is.
what's your name? My name is Michael.
But normally you would better hear him.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because we're on the beta version of the game?
The
What's
voice,
happening?
I think it's just how the sound is working with the streaming and the game and the video, because it seems like we
Okay.
can't really hear any of the background sound right
Okay.
now. So typically there would be a light soundtrack, and there would be the kit is speaking in a very pleasing female identifying British accent. Um,
Okay.
I don't have any questions. I'd like to get exploring.
Oh, the voice recognition is perfect.
Hmm.
Oh, this is really good. This is really
Hmm.
cool.
Yeah, so we're using a third-party software that essentially I've been training the kit. So I add in a lot of backstory, I add in a lot of information and context and dialogue examples, as well as different moods, personality items, things like that. And it kind of pumps that out. So I spend a lot of time tweaking that model.
And
So
how do you
anyway,
navigate in now? Are you using a keyboard, a mouse?
yep, so
How are you
now we're
doing this?
using the keyboard. It's
Uh-huh.
basically very standard controls, your WASD and mouse and keyboard movement controls.
Okay.
So this is your character walking around the island. As you can see,
Is the
it's
kit with us?
beautiful. The
It's
kit
amazing. Yeah.
follows us
Okay.
around. The kit
Okay.
will always be with us.
Cool. That sounds a little bit scary, but that's
Hmm.
cool.
It's supposed to be a bit ominous, if nothing else.
Yeah.
So the goal of the island right now, we're on the first of three islands. You can see we have a player home here. We have this
Mhm.
mountain in the background. That's one of the puzzles in the distance. And so the
Mhm.
goal, which the player will not necessarily be aware of to start off, is to get this bridge in the distance to lower so they can get to the next island.
Okay. And you say there's
So
three islands, so we're on one of them.
we're on one of them. So this island is the introductory island. You can see
Okay.
on the other side of that bridge is the second island,
Uh-huh.
and then over there is the third island.
And I'm
Unfortunately, oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, I remember in one of the meetings we had previously, there was discussion about customizing islands. You can actually build
Hmm.
your own island.
Yeah.
You want to tell me
So
about that?
this is not the customized island. The idea for that will be a little bit further down the road. The idea here is that we wanted to present different challenges based on different islands as well as different biomes. We're
Okay.
dealing with a population with a lot of sensory sensitivities. So we want to test out different types of environments to see which are the most conducive to their success.
Cool. I
So
mean,
anyways,
it looks great. It looks really good. I mean,
mhm.
do you want to take us up to one of the puzzles?
Yeah,
Is that
absolutely.
possible?
Absolutely. So I'll run you through a few puzzles so you can see. So the introductory island is meant to present puzzles in their most simple form. All you need to do is complete two. So this one is a pattern matching puzzle. Very straightforward. All the player will need to do is see this pattern and replicate it. So we go in, scrambles, and what we need to do, replicate it just like that. And so that puzzle's now complete. So what you can't hear is now the kit is actually telling part of the story. Every time you complete one of the puzzles, the kit will essentially unveil part of the story, which right now we can't hear, but I'll show you the other aspect of where the stories become involved.
Okay.
And I'll give you the spoiler. Basically, these stories are collections of other versions of the kit observing other cultures. So
Well,
if we
well,
go
well,
into the house,
this is getting a bit
part of
surreal. Say that
mhm,
again. Other versions of the kit observing.
observing other cultures. So essentially, this is an
Wow.
experiment that you're a part of, which
Okay.
I can explain in a little bit. So once you unlock the different parts of the story, you come here where the story has essentially been printed out,
Hmm.
and part of the challenge is for the player to essentially put them in order, figure out what order the story is actually in as part of completing the island. It's also a way for the player to review what's been happening. And
And
the
does that
kit,
mean that if every time the puzzles are scrambled, does that mean there's a different story every time?
Right.
Or is it just
So
one essential story, or
every
how's that?
every playthrough, there's a different story.
Wow. Okay.
And each one is based off of a different like emotional or psychological state. So basically, the first story that's being read is a collection of stories from a culture that is incredibly paranoid and suspicious.
Right.
And
Okay.
so it's a collection of stories based on this observer within a culture like that. So one is following a detective, another follows a school teacher, another is kind of a Romeo and Juliet style story taking place in those cultures.
Right.
So
Okay.
now, here from the top of the mountain, we'll go up to the next puzzle,
The
and it is
graphics are really
intentionally
good.
vague about where you're supposed to go because we are tracking the player. We want to see how they respond. So now, here is a very different type of puzzle, which is a simple reaction time puzzle, where all we need to do is press the space bar right here,
Hit the
and you
green.
complete it once, and now the bridge is unlocked.
Okay. But I mean, can I ask you a specific question then? So, how does this game assess the requirements or aptitudes for work?
Hmm. It's a
Because
great
this
question.
isn't just a game for fun, is
No,
it? I mean,
definitely
it
not.
is fun. I can see it's fun,
Hmm.
but this is specifically so that people can find work.
Yeah. So then why
Um,
don't I'll give you a specific example. One of the things that are more generally, so part of what we're working on is figuring out in a job posting what it actually means. And that's where we're working from. So say we have a job posting that says that anyone who applies must thrive in a fast-paced environment. So what does
mhm.
that mean? That probably means an active communication style. It probably means working without intense supervision, and it probably means a high risk tolerance. So, say we want to measure risk tolerance for an individual. There are 100 different ways we can do that, whether or not they read instructions, whether or not they go straight to one thing or another. Another way of measuring it is through the puzzles. So, this puzzle gets faster the more you get it right. So, the question is, does the player try it to get it right exactly every time? Or do they wait for it to go back and forth a few times to make sure to get the timing right? Now, this is the puzzle on
Oh,
its easiest, so it's a little hard to see. But someone who lets the arrow go back and forth indicates a lower risk tolerance than the person who is just trying to get it, right?
okay.
So
Am I
that would
going to
be,
need to talk to our psychologist to understand that?
no, I think
Is
that's a
that
fairly, the more simple way of breaking it down. But yes, our psychometrician
okay?
will be taking the data that we're drawing from
Okay.
that and plugging it into her own analysis. So it's never
Wow.
quite as straightforward as just letting it go back and forth means you have a low risk tolerance, but it is one of the many variables that we'll take into account.
Right.
Um,
Right.
I'll show you another example of it. So now that we've completed that puzzle, we'll go back down.
So, what type of data do we actually collect in the game for people with
Everything.
privacy concerns? So, yeah.
So,
What about,
well, one
yeah.
aspect
Can
of
you?
it is that when it comes to privacy concerns,
Hmm.
by playing the game, the player acknowledges that we're going to collect everything. We're not going to
Hmm.
share it with anyone. The data will be kept private on our end, but we're going to be tracking everything from how many times does the player click on the screen? Do they stay on this path or not? We're not going to collect any like private personal data, but if you're doing it in the game, the player should assume that we are collecting it because
Okay.
it's all helpful data.
But
There's
can we just repeat that? Because that's actually interesting for me. We're not
Mhm.
collecting anything personal.
Right. We
We're
are
primarily focusing upon
your behavior. Exactly.
people's
Everything is
behavior.
behavioral. We're not going to be, say, capturing a picture of your face. We're going to be asking you most likely demographic questions separately from the game.
Hmm.
But in this, we're tracking every interaction. It's not just, oh, how did you do on a puzzle? It's how many steps did you take in between puzzles? How much
Okay.
time did it take for you to go from A to B? What did you do in what order? Things along those lines. Um,
Okay, 'cause I've got a follow-up question for this then.
mhm.
This has got a two-part question. Providing feedback for people that have played the game. What sort of feedback can we provide for the players, and what sort of
Mm.
feedback can we provide for the employers? Which ones do you
So
want to do?
yeah, it'll be broken down into two parts, and obviously that's something that we're still working on a little bit. But it'll be broken down into two parts. One, the player is going to get excuse, a breakdown of their results. So that's going to be something very straightforward of basically saying, here's how we assessed you. But one really important aspect of this is when they see the results, it's not going to say, you did this right, you did this wrong, because that's
Hmm.
not what we're assessing. We're assessing your skills and abilities. So if you tried a puzzle 100 times and got it wrong every time, that doesn't mean that you got the wrong answers. What that means is that you're persistent, you're willing to try things that you find challenging, and you're willing to learn. So here's a puzzle that's actually a great example of that, of one that I'm terrible at. So this is a puzzle where it's just about matching the numbers on either side. I happen to be very bad at puzzles like this. I got it fairly quickly because this is one of the original ones. But the idea is that even if you're bad at it, if you spend
Okay.
the next 20 minutes banging your head against it, what that means is you're willing to try something until you get good at it. So that will be basically information that's told to the player as part of their report.
It shows your perseverance. Yeah.
Exactly.
And
And then
that be fed back to the player.
that'll be fed back to the player either through feedback via the kit,
Mm-hmm.
our friend right here, or via the report that basically the guide to you that the player will be seeing. So we're not only tracking your performance, we will be tracking things like, do you keep background noises in the game? What's the
Mm-hmm.
brightness of the environment? Do you adjust the lights? Really, everything like that. So we can put it into a guide to you being the player.
Mm-hmm.
So we can hand that to the employer and not just say, okay, this person is good at this person excels at this, and here are their strengths. But we can also say, here's the type of work environment that the person thrives in. So, for
Okay.
example, if the individual turns off all the background noise and dims the luminosity of the environment, we'll most likely match them to remote jobs because they're
Mm-hmm.
indicating as someone who prefers to have control over their environment, someone who works the best under specific circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
So the employer will not just see here's how the person interacts with the environment, but also here's how they prefer to work. I'm not going to do this one because this one is very hard for me, but essentially, as you can see, you have numbers here.
Wow.
And the idea is basically to build it up three in each one. So I actually just got that one wrong, but that's okay. Because again, there's no wrong answer here. But we're not going to do that one. We're going to keep moving.
Yeah, but I've got follow-up questions on this
Of
because this is
course.
interesting. I mean, for example, if you already had neurodivergent worker in your workplace and they were to play this game, you could actually provide a better condition or environment for them to thrive once they played
Absolutely.
this game. So
Absolutely.
this game could be used then not just for people seeking employment or people looking to recruit, but for people that already have employees and how to
Yes.
improve their environment for their work, their
Correct.
productivity.
Yeah, exactly. As an internal assessment tool, this would be incredibly helpful as well, just finding better ways to work with the team that you already have, neurodivergent or not. You can deal with people who are having difficulty working in your environment from a physical perspective or even from a communication perspective. So we'll
Hmm.
even be analyzing things like how do they communicate with the kit? And things like that will be able to turn into more information into the guide to you. So here's another example of a puzzle. Let's see. So this one is
How many
about.
how many puzzles are there approximately?
I I believe we have 8 to 9 varieties of puzzles. The
Variety.
first island has two. The second has six, and I believe the third has 8. But I would have to check on that. Unfortunately, right now the third island is inaccessible due to a game bug, but that will hopefully be resolved by the end of the day.
But did,
So there you can see.
is
So we
is
complete
there
it.
a, is there a limit? Is there a limit to the
Nope,
amount of puzzles?
definitely not. I think over time we'll want to expand it. What the limit is essentially creating a different challenge on every island.
Because
So each
I'm
one,
interested in the customizability, customer. How do you say? I've lost the word.
yeah,
I'm interested in the ability to customize the game from the employer side
hmm
to find specific employees or to improve the work environment for their employees. Because they
yeah,
ask for, I don't know, specific traits they're looking for or ways in which they need to adapt their environment for particular employees. And then we could custom build puzzles for those people.
yeah, absolutely. Creating both a bespoke environment and bespoke puzzles would be fairly easy to do at this point. Kind of the hard work is done of conceptualizing the game, developing the space, and all that. If a company says we want you to do these types of assessments, at this point, it would be no problem to design the game around it. Of course, we'd have to work on our methodology, but
Mm-hmm.
otherwise, that would be a very straightforward thing to do. Now that we know, here's how we want to do it. Sorry, I actually need to finish this to show you one more cool part of the game. So one of
Okay.
the things we're going to be tracking, is how long does it take to move between places? And does the player decide to spend all that time? You want to know, how does someone use their time? Because it's not just, are they an effective worker doing this? Are they a good worker doing that? But do they work quickly? Do they work slowly? Are they methodical?
Mm.
Or do they like to do one task at a time and jump to another?
I can see
So,
you avoided the path there. You took the direct
yes,
route.
I like to jump around.
Yeah.
So that would show up on the assessment. So one of the items that we've added in, let's see if I've unlocked it yet, is a
But
basic
to be
fast travel.
clear, that you shouldn't worry about being assessed here, should you?
No, exactly. It's just playing the game because
Um,
everything you do is useful information to us. There's no right or wrong way.
yeah,
So now,
it's just to be really clear that there's no judgment. This is assessment.
exactly, this is an assessment, not a test.
Yeah. Can you just give me one more time the real difference between in your for your side the
Mhm.
difference between judgment and assessment?
Yeah, so this is an assessment, not a test. I'll give an example. When
Mm,
we have a puzzle and we have two users try it, and one user solves it in 10 minutes but tries two solutions, and another user solves it in a minute and a half but tries 50 different solutions, both of those are good results. It just
mhm.
depends on what the employer is looking for. Do they want someone who works quickly with a high risk tolerance so they can get to an answer? Or do they want someone who works slowly, methodically to make sure it's right the first time? Those are both totally legitimate approaches to work. It just depends on what the job is calling for.
Mhm.
Is that a
And for
good?
the employee, would that help them knowing what type of work they should be looking for, or what type of work environment they should be
Not only
looking
would
for?
it would help them have a better understanding of how they approach problems as a way to advocate for themselves better, and it would help
Hmm.
us make a higher value match. So
Hmm.
while it could help them find the right job, more importantly, it will help us match them to the correct work environment.
Because I've heard that this is something I'm sure we've all read many times. Neurodivergent individuals
Hmm.
um, do not interview very well generally.
Right.
Well, that's maybe not fair to say. A lot of neurodivergent individuals find it very hard in the interview process. And
Hmm.
this game will help with that. That's the idea,
Absolutely.
isn't that part of the idea? Yeah.
Absolutely. The idea is that a lot of challenges that exist in the real world don't need to exist in a digital one.
Hmm.
That a lot
Of
of what
course.
you show in an interview has no reflection on your ability to do a job. What we are trying to do is show the individual's ability to do the job. An
That's cool.
interview
I like it.
is just a popularity. It's not a popularity contest, but it's a do you mesh with this individual, which again really rarely reflects on is this person capable of doing the work or not. We
Mhm.
are really trying to show the person behind the interview, the person behind the resume.
I like the person behind the resume. I like it. We've
Yeah.
got a tagline there. We've got a
Oh yeah.
tagline for our
I've been
interview.
using it
Yeah,
everywhere. We're showing the person behind the resume.
I love it. I like it. Yeah.
Hmm.
Okay, so what's happening now? Where are we now?
So now we're using the fast travel system. So if the player doesn't want to have to walk all the way back, they can use this little gondola. So what you can't hear is there's a little bit of music playing in the background here.
Hmm.
And then once the player unlocks the third island, which right now unfortunately is not possible to do, there will be a second gondola that comes here.
Hmm.
So the player will be able to use it to get to and from the different islands.
That's great. Well, I
Hmm.
think, I mean, this has already been quite long. So,
Hmm.
and it's a great introduction. It's my first time seeing the game. Maybe next time we could meet up again and we could
Hmm.
get to the third island, and
Absolutely.
I could let some of this stuff simmer and think over it. Oh, I can
Yeah,
see we're back to where we were. I see. Okay. And
exactly.
we could meet again possibly and have a look at the third island. I could come with a lot
Yeah,
more questions. Would you be happy to
absolutely.
do that?
I would be very happy to do that.
Okay, great. I mean, any closing thoughts?
I can't wait. This is we're getting really close to the polished version. It's been amazing to kind of see what we've conceptualized turned into this real space. Hopefully the next time we'll be able to figure out the sound. So Mark, even you could have a conversation with the kit and really start to feel it out.
Wow,
But
that
otherwise,
sounds
I'm
great.
I'm excited to show.
Yeah, that sounds really great. Okay, I look forward to that. So, we'll pick this up again when the game takes the next step. Right?